went back to the gym, my whole mindset changed because I wanted to build myself back up, of course. I mean, I had been in a wheelchair. So I went with a whole new mindset of building myself back up. When you turn the whole narrative around and ask yourself, what does my body actually need? How can I build myself back up in all kinds of ways? It becomes so much more intuitive. It's so much easier to do. And I think it's also much more beneficial.
Welcome to Zestful Aging Podcast, where I speak with change makers from all over the world, from every walk of life, who will inspire you to live with zest. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, and my mission is to bring you optimism about aging and help you make full use of the new opportunities that only come at this stage of life. And to find out more about this podcast, hop on over to zestfulaging.com. Well, today's guest is going to change your entire outlook on dieting, weight loss, and all things body. Kim is a 60-year-old mom of 3 who was diagnosed with MS 10 years ago and was actually in a wheelchair. She ignored her doctor's advice and began lifting weights. And this year, she became European champion in Masters Weightlifting in her age and weight category. She's going to speak with us today about the importance of reactivating and maintaining muscle in midlife. Welcome to the show, Kim.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
We're going to have a great conversation. I wanted to start with the multiple sclerosis, and you described that as a wake-up call for you. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. It really hit me out of the blue, and it was a wake-up call in so many different aspects. First of all, of course, you just live your life. I had 3 small kids, and you're just very busy with everyday living, sometimes even complaining about all the stuff that you have to do because you feel like, overwhelmed sometimes and always looking after people. And then when from one day to the next, you can't do any of those, you think, times weren't too bad when I was actually able to do all the things I complained about. So it's a wake-up call for that. And that was my biggest conclusion, was like to be grateful for everything that I have in terms of ability to move and do things and even, be there for everybody all the time. Because when you can't, then you miss it dearly and you realize that you have been complaining sort of on a high level. It was also a wake-up call because I had, quite honestly, lived in this assumption that I was indestructible. And it was not like a conscious assumption where every morning I got up and thought, oh my God, I'm so indestructible. Not at all. Nobody does that. But the way we live, the way we take our health and everything for granted, and we think, oh yeah, I'm going to do that another time. I'm going to look after that another time. I'm a little bit stressed out. It's true, but I can do that later. All this, going to do that later. You'll have a big wake-up call when something hits you out of the blue. And the craziest thing and the most unsettling thing for me was that I had thought of myself as being health conscious, start trying to eat good food and exercising and everything. And then when you have an autoimmune disorder strike like that, it's got not really so much to do with whether you've eaten your oatmeal in the morning or something. It's just, there is no reasonable explanation for this, and this is something
It's a total system breakdown.
Absolutely. And it's not like you can say, oh, I did this and now that happened to me. This is also something that I find very important right now in the work with my clients. If something happens, even if we don't like it, but we can explain it, then we're on a winning streak because we know this happened for that reason. When you all of a sudden have an autoimmune disease where, my left hand went numb, like progressively, and until they found out what was going on, it was a while. There's no way you can trace it back to any particular thing that you have done. And then you learn, first of all, to accept that this is just what it is. It seems arbitrary, and I'm pretty sure that somewhere in my genetic makeup and there's a reason for that, but I don't know that reason. And it's very important to just take that as it is. If you start, I've heard so many times that when people get hit with a disease that they say something like, "Why me?" And I never asked that question because, what do you want to say by that? Like, why not somebody else, please? That's not, it doesn't really make sense. And I think the only way that can help you in a situation like that, and that's also why sometimes we need a wake-up call, is to look at, what can I do now? Where do I want to go next? Don't worry so much about why is it happening to me, or what happened, or what's going on. If it's something like this, which seems so arbitrary, you just want to take it as it is and then move on.
You're talking about acceptance as a really important part of moving to the next step. Absolutely. And not getting caught in what happened, why, what did I do? I should have done that. I shouldn't have done this and this and this. That in some ways, that is a waste of energy that you need to take yourself to the next step. Do you remember your thought process when your doctor said, no, you shouldn't do this. You should just follow the regular protocol? Do you remember thinking to yourself, I got to start doing something different?
I remembered two things. One was when I asked about exercise, and the doctor said, well, yeah, exercise is good, but, be careful. Do gentle exercise. I could tell by looking at him that he didn't know what he was talking about. And saying gentle exercise, what does that even mean? Because this is something that depends totally on where you are at, what you sort of perceive as gentle, maybe. And I don't think he had any measurable parameters in mind when he said that. It was just this. I could see that he had a knee-jerk reaction to the word exercise, where he thought, this is not really my jam. I know it's supposed to be good, but then I don't want to send this patient off to do something crazy. Who knows? And then he just says, "Oh, just be careful."
Yes, very conservative and
Yes.
Vague.
Yes,
and
vague.
So you were you always a bit of a rebel, Kim? I mean, were you one to say, well, that's an interesting opinion. Thank you for the consultation. I'm going to do what I need to do. Was that already your character?
Yes, I had
I love that.
Yeah, not everybody who meets me loves that. But it's not. I think I was also. I was just raised also with some sort of healthy skepticism when it comes to the medical profession, and not because it has nothing to do with the individual. And I don't want to bash anybody and say, oh, they're all bad. It's just they are there to do a very specific job, and as a patient, you would just have to find the part where what they are doing is helpful and relevant to you, and the part where what they are doing is just some cookie cutter thing or some protocol that they have learned and are obliged to follow, but that is not relevant to you. And in my case,
I think that's so smart that you really have to advocate. And I know you're living in Spain now, Kim?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. It's very different, right? I mean, I don't know more or less so, but in the US, it's such a part of this complex and system that once you're in the system, you become, well, I guess we don't want to go down that hole too much, but like you really have to advocate for yourself because you will get lost in the system.
Absolutely. And it's something that I see every day when I talk to women. I think it's a bit of a reflex, or maybe still a learned attitude, that we think that when we're talking to someone from the medical profession, that we lose our agency, that we just have to accept everything they tell us. They're humans too. They also have their experience and their way of looking at life and stuff that they have learned and they haven't learned. And I think it's really important to find out exactly what's relevant to you. And if you're not sure, to keep asking questions until all your questions are answered. And I it's quite disheartening. I talk to so many women who tell me, yeah, my doctor told me something. I don't remember what it was, but it means that I have to take this medication. You want to know what it is. You want to know why. You want to understand, because otherwise you become just this thing that is tossed around and not having any say yourself. And I think especially when it comes to our health, and especially for midlife women, because we often feel and are perceived as not mattering much anymore, you want to keep as much autonomy and self-determination as possible when it comes to your health. And if you have to ask 5 times, ask 5 times, have them explain. If you have to ask 10 times, ask 10 times until you are crystal clear what's going on, what is this person saying, and how is that applicable to my situation.
I think that's such great advice, just in general, that we really we know ourselves better than anyone else does. And if something doesn't feel right, it needs further exploration. I really appreciate that.
I think we are all searching for a more meaningful and joy-filled life, but we don't quite know where to start. Anyway, that's what my clients have told me. Wouldn't you just love a blueprint to figure out how to be your most vibrant self in this phase of life? If so, let me tell you about a recent discovery. It's called Camp Reinvention. Wendy Perotti and Dana Hilmer are both masters at helping people transform their lives in the direction of more joy and deep satisfaction. Their coaching approach is like rocket fuel to take you to a life that's more energized and meaningful. And right now you can sign up for Camp Reinvention with my code, which is available in the show notes. And please let me know about your experience. And now back to the show.
So you left that doctor's meeting not terribly inspired by the message, and then you went and said, I'm going to see what happens if I start lifting some weights, something like that.
Yes, I mean, I had been training before, so I had done stuff in the gym, and I had quite enjoyed it actually. And it was my I was naturally inclined to go and lift weights, and I felt okay. I mean, I do have some lesions until this day, but I felt okay enough to say, well, I'm not going to go and change what I like doing. I'm just going to go back and see what happens. And I felt so good after going back to lifting. And after such a short time, this is something that most people can't imagine. It only takes a few weeks because you really reactivate the whole system and you get a whole series of knock-on effects. You become stronger, you become more confident, you become more positive, you carry yourself differently. And I felt after such a short time that I was on the right track, that I was never going to look back. And over the years, then whenever I had to present myself to a doctor, and we moved countries, so I never saw that one again since we moved to Spain. But they would look at me and see that I'm just fine. I'm really doing so well that they don't they don't worry about me exercising gently or not anymore. That's for sure.
I think one of the things that you say that I just love is you talk about you're really interested in building up, not destroying. Can you reflect on that a little bit more?
Yes, absolutely. Because when I went back to the gym after I had been diagnosed, I remember that's the big difference. Before that, I also trained with a bit of a sort of diet mindset. I thought I had to train to keep a certain look or to control my weight and to burn calories. I also used to do a lot of cardio. I was in that mindset of sort of wanting to be small and slim and all these things that we think we need to be as women. And when I then got sick and went back to the gym, my whole mindset changed because I wanted to build myself back up, of course. I mean, I had been in a wheelchair. My legs they looked like sticks after 2 weeks, the muscle, it's sort of, it wastes very quickly. So I went with a whole new mindset of building myself back up. And over the years, I also through working with so many women who struggle with their weight and with symptoms of menopause and everything. When you turn the whole narrative around and ask yourself, what does my body actually need? How can I build myself back up in all kinds of ways? It becomes so much more intuitive. It's so much easier to do. And I think it's also much more beneficial because our brain is also built that way. Just imagine, I'm just telling you not to think about chocolate right now. What are you going to think about, right? But if I ask you, what would really energize you? What do you think your body needs right now in terms of food in order to perform and to function? And then when you bring the weight training, the strength training into the mix, it becomes even more straightforward because you ask yourself, what do I want to fuel this training with? What do I want to fuel my body with and it can perform and be powerful? And then the choices when it comes to food also become so much easier because you don't have to worry about all sorts of nitty-gritty stuff that you found on Google where, don't eat after 6 p.m. or eat your vegetables first. And then this is all, I don't say this is all completely useless, but I think it complicates things. And when you just ask yourself, how am I going to eat for building and maintaining my beautiful muscle? And then it all falls into place and becomes so much easier.
It's so self-respecting too, and it's so self-caring, which is you said it changes the narrative. I mean, it's a completely different conversation about what would be fresh and delicious and nutritious and packed with really good stuff. I think about it in terms of gut biome too. Like, what do my little gut buddies want, and they don't want McDonald's. I know that for sure. And it might be, we may have some different choices, but it's a completely different mindset. And I think the basic question is, I am a person of worth and value, and I need to be treated with utmost respect, which is really, it's such a foundational kind of belief. And I love that you talk about the building up, not tearing down and destroying. It's a completely different way to think about ourselves in the world.
Absolutely. And I honestly think that if you go about, your health or the way you look or your weight with this destructive or with this sort of shrinking, wanting to shrink attitude, I'm sure that there's somewhere deep inside you something that will not accept this. Could even be our survival instinct, because we are programmed, to consume as much energy as we can. We were threatened by starvation for most of our history. So when we then impose this mindset of let's become as small as possible, as tiny as possible, and also, not take up any space. Oh my God.
Mm.
I'm
And we're
pretty sure that,
already invisible as
yes, yes.
as older women, so it just reinforces that that whole idea of let me make myself completely inconsequential.
Yes, and I'm pretty convinced that somewhere deep inside in our survival instincts, there's something that will react to that and that will fight that. And this is why it's so hard, and why it becomes like a roller coaster, or for many women, a yo-yo dieting approach, where you give it your best, you go harder and harder and harder, and then the backlash is always going to be worse each time, because it's just not what we are supposed to do or to be. And
Fighting
I mean,
biology.
we're women. I mean, we want to nourish, right, and to nurture, and I mean, we're natural bodybuilders. We build bodies inside ourselves. So why on earth would we want to start sort of tearing down and shrinking and reducing things?
I love that, just as a general philosophy. And, if you'll allow me, as a psychotherapist, if you're all about diminishing, how do you then be in a relationship as an equal partner? If your philosophy is shrinking, that's just doesn't make sense. You talk about, a little bit about this new, well, it's probably not new, but the high intensity workouts, of course, are all over social, and some of the science people are saying, yes, you should run as fast as you can and then slow down. What do you say about the high intensity? You have something to say about that as middle-aged and older women.
Yeah, I think this is a typical example of stuff that makes it from the research community into the mainstream, and that sort of it gets, I'm not going to say misinterpreted, but the way it's applied is not very helpful most of the time. High intensity interval training is arguably one of the most efficient ways to burn calories and fat, and to have like what they call the afterburn. But it has to be what it's called, which is high intensity. So you have to go really hard. You have to challenge your body to a point where you just can't do anything else. That it's extremely uncomfortable. That's the idea. If it's not extremely uncomfortable, you're not going high intensity. And what do you need in order to challenge your body like that? If you want it, you want to take it to the brink of exhaustion, or sort of breakdown, and that's not breakdown in a general way, but in that particular workout, you want to go to a point where you can't do it anymore. Your body has to be pretty fit already. You cannot get fit with high intensity interval training. You can get fit to a point where you can actually do that. But I'm just, maybe this is a wild guess, but most middle-aged women who struggle with their weight, they're not at a point where this is going to be helpful. And that's for two reasons. One of them is they're physically probably not prepared. So even if they do something that is a bit in an on and off modus, and going a bit harder and then a bit less hard, it might be fun, but it's not going to be real high intensity, and they could get hurt. If you try to push yourself when you're not even. And this is why I always talk about reactivating and reconnecting to your muscle. If you've been sedentary for years or even decades, you want to go high intensity, you're gonna get hurt. That's for sure. There's another point, because for it to be actually effective, you have to go to that point of utter discomfort. Now, if you're someone who hasn't exercised in years or decades, and you start with that kind of thing, you're going to be so disgusted and discouraged after one or two sessions, because it's just horrible. And So,
I don't
you
want
know,
to do anything that's horrible, Kim. I
yeah.
want to do things that feel good and feel invigorating. I don't want to be, you said so unpleasant. I mean, gosh, there's so much unpleasantness already
Yes.
in
Now,
our world.
and high intensity can, you can do high intensity in a different way, because if you lift weights, you don't need to pump iron or anything. When I say lifting weights, I'm talking about strength training in general. You can do that even with your body weight. But strength training is also a short burst of intense activity for your body.
Mm,
The high
mm,
intensity training that is so popular right now, that's cardio training, and that's why it makes you sick, like literally, in the process. But strength training is high intensity too, and it will, have such a strong effect on your musculature and your strength and everything, and even on your resistance, on your way to tackle challenges, everything. You will benefit from that, and it's going to be just a different kind of intensity, and I think it's so much easier to implement. And then, because you can keep that up, you will actually benefit from it. It's great to do
mhm.
hit
Sustainable. Yeah.
training, but when you do it
Yeah.
twice and then you don't come back because it's so horrible, then you haven't achieved anything.
Oh gosh, yeah, I can imagine there'd be some good memes about that. Now, you're really a fan of functional movement. Am I saying it right? That is, a lot of this is
Absolutely.
about functionality, not necessarily look at my, Michelle Obama arms, although that's nice too. Um, can you talk a little bit about what that means? What does that expression mean, and why is that important for us at midlife?
Yeah. So I think it's about, I'm guessing, but it's about 20 years ago that there was a bit of a paradigm shift in training. Nowadays, still, when you talk about like strength training or weightlifting, people think about bodybuilding. We have all these images from the 70s with Arnold Schwarzenegger
Mm.
pumping iron
I
in the
know.
gym.
Yes. Yes.
And, I do weightlifting, which is something totally different. But even recently, someone sent me a message and said, well done for all your bodybuilding stuff. And I said, well, we still have some explaining to do
Mhm.
here. So bodybuilding is when you train particular muscles. You're training muscles to stimulate them, for them to grow in a certain way, the way you want to. Like you will do bicep curls, for example. That's this is just one muscle, and you do a movement that trains that one muscle. You can work the calves and the tricep, and that's what bodybuilders do. They isolate the muscle and then they train it in order for it to grow and take a certain shape that they want it to have. And then this paradigm shift I talked about is, like, I think it's 20 years ago, but please don't quote me on that, is when we started not to train muscles, but movements. Because
Mm.
just look at your daily life. How many things are in your daily activities that require a bicep curl?
Not many.
I don't think so. However,
Mhm.
what we have done forever since we've been humans, and that what we still do today, is we have to push things, we have to pull things, we have to carry things, we have to
Mm.
lift things up from the floor or take them down, for example, from a high cupboard or something. And those are
Mhm.
movements, and that's what we call functional training. So what we're doing in the gym, or even in our, at home in our training, is supposed to prepare us and to make us more competent and able for activities of daily living, stuff that we need to
Mm.
do.
Like pulling dog food out of the trunk without
For
pulling a
for example,
muscle.
yes,
Mm.
absolutely.
Mhm. Do you have any? I know you have lots of to say. You have programs. You have all these good things, and we'll refer to them in a little while. But do you have any thoughts about how people can even start in the smallest way doing some of their own functional training in daily life?
Absolutely. And I think it's really crucial that you start as small as you can, especially when you have been inactive for a while. Now, the safest way is really to get someone to help you and find, your particular strengths and weaknesses, because not everybody has lost the function, say, of their buttock muscles, or not everybody has weak arms or weak legs. Everyone has their own story and their own strengths and weaknesses. So it's great to have someone find out what that is. If you're not quite sure, you'd like to start moving more, you want to just scale the movements back to the easiest version possible. A very good example is, for example, a push-up. Push-up is a fantastic exercise. It's not only for your arms, it's a whole body exercise. You need perfect core strength for that. You need good upper body strength, and even your back is involved. Now, if you haven't done anything for years and you're going to try a push-up, it's just going to be impossible and painful. So what do? I know there's a very common way of scaling that back towards a knee push-up, where you're not you're not pushing up your whole body, but just from the knee upward. That's not what I recommend. What I do recommend is look at the angle. In the push-up, you're horizontal, and when you're horizontal, that's the hardest way to do it. You want to change the angle. You want to put the body in a close to upright position, actually, and you want to do the push-up against the wall, because that way you start exercising the arm muscle, the upper body muscles. You have to be very pay attention to not tipping at the hip, really doing the full movement with the entire body. And that way you can prepare your muscles and your joints, because that's the biggest problem for midlife people, that if you don't have your muscle developed to a point where it can actually carry your entire body weight, you're going to put all that load on your joints. And when you're not 20 anymore, your joints have a certain mileage, and they might not react very well to that kind of load all of a sudden. So you want to build up. You want to stand against the wall, do a wall push-up, and when you can do something like 20, then you sort of change the angle again, and you do it maybe on the back of a sofa or a kitchen table. So that way,
I see. You keep making it a more of an angle. You keep kind of going down, so you're more resistance. Am I getting that?
Absolutely. And it really is crucial with whatever it's great if you want to try and do something. That's fantastic. That's the best thing you can do for yourself. But just don't go out and just look at any old YouTube video. There's great programs on YouTube. They work well. But if you haven't done anything for a while, you want to find a version of the exercises that corresponds to your level of strength and skill at this point in time, and then you can start from there and improve gently, but like with certainty, and make sure that you don't get hurt.
That's really I love that, and it's back to, I think, treating yourself with respect.
Absolutely.
Too, just the whole general philosophy of, let me do this in a way that isn't going to hurt me, and that it feels, again, back to the positive rather than the negative. I think you made a really interesting point about different strengths and different weaknesses, because as we talked about the Camino, and I'm a pretty good long distance walker, but I could not do a push-up if with all the money in the world, I could not do a push-up, and I'm a tennis player. So, we have different capabilities based on what we're used to doing, even if we are active. And it sounds like that's kind of part of what you do. You assess that. Am I correct about that?
Yes, absolutely. That's crucial. And that's crucial, especially, you would even ideally do it with someone who's 20 years old. So just, you design like the perfect path for them. But I think it's a matter of, well, maybe not exactly life and death, but very close to it when you are in your 50s, say, because the problem is when you're 20, you get hurt, you recover quickly. When you're 50, you get hurt, it takes longer, and you might struggle with things forever, and that's the worst part, you might get totally discouraged and say, oh, yeah,
Mhm.
that didn't work for me. I'm not going to do it again. So you want to make sure that you start exactly where you're at. Because
Mhm.
then from there on, you can, from there on, you can take it wherever you want. The sky's the limit. But you
Mhm.
want to start, conservatively and know exactly where you're at. And if, like you said, if you can walk for super long distances but can't do a push-up, then you can challenge your legs in a workout probably quite nicely, but you want to take it easy and gently, on your upper body until you've gained the strength that you need to do stronger stuff.
This is the absolute opposite of no pain, no gain kind of world. What is it? The Biggest Loser. I was going to say the world's biggest loser, but it's in my, the way I think about our challenges and as a psychotherapist too, your whole paradigm, the whole way you're thinking about this, I think is just so health promoting. It's just beautiful.
Thank you. No pain, no gain it's probably also just misinterpreted, because what it really comes down to is there is a lot of truth to it, in the sense that everything in a way is a trade-off. If you want to become healthier, or if you want to lose weight, there's something you will have to change.
Mm-hmm.
And for most humans, change is, and not even on a reasonable or conscious level, but like on a very instinctive primal level, change is threatening. Change is maybe what you could call pain. So yes, there are going to be trade-offs always. There are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. You will have to trade something in if you want something else in return. But when you just call it no pains, no gains, then that's a misinterpretation where you think, oh, if I'm just going to hurt myself enough, then I'm going to get to the solution that I want. Which is, of course, it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. When you take the pain really, at what it really means, in the sense of a trade-off, in the sense of I do have to do something different.
Maybe it's discomfort. Maybe it's the discomfort of saying, okay, let me do this differently, make a choice that isn't as easy as sitting on the couch, that I'm going to get up and start, doing my wall push-ups. It's different than sitting in front of the fire knitting.
Absolutely. And if you want to call that pain, then yeah, by all means, no pain, no gain. But I rather call it trade-offs, or as you say, discomfort, and then discomfort also. You want to be very vigilant, and not fall into this trap where you think that discomfort in itself is valuable. It's the value is in what are you trading in and what are you getting out. And if it's just like, oh yeah, that was like, doing horrible workouts or something where you feel like really bad at the end, and that makes you feel good about yourself just because you were uncomfortable, that's not the point. You want to do it smart, with a goal in mind, and with being sure of what you want in return for what you put in.
Yeah, that sounds a lot more sensible and intelligent. Kim, where can people find out more about you and what you offer in terms of programming and help for women who are really curious about this new way of thinking about the building up, not the destroying, and how can I help myself be more fit in a sustainable way?
Well, the easiest way is to just shoot me an email at kim@kimrahir.com.
And that's RAHIR. Yeah.
That's it. You can also just have a look if you don't want to step into a conversation with me right away. You can have a look at kimrahir.com. That's my website. I'm explaining a little bit about what I do. And there's also a free assessment tool that you can look at, where you can actually find out where you are at right now with your health and your strength. So it's an assessment tool. It's like a very short questionnaire, and it takes into account not only, can you lift 20 kilos or can you do a push-up, but it's a deep health questionnaire where you can find out where exactly am I at right now with my strength, my energy, my confidence, and where should I start if I want to change something. So you can find that sweet spot where where your start will be the most promising and get you the best results.
Lovely. That's beautiful. So just to repeat, it's Kim Rahir, RAHIR.com. Kim, it has been so lovely speaking with you today, and I really appreciate what you bring. And the positivity and the messages are just so humane and kind. Thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Thank you. It's really been a pleasure, and I love chatting with you always.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends.
Our theme song is All I Did Was Wait for You by Kjartan Abel. Visit Kjartan-Abel, that's KJARTAN-Abel, ABEL.com to hear more of Kjartan's work. And our technical director is Stephen Litweiler.
Hello, Zesties. Well, many of you know that I've been a psychotherapist for more than 30 years, and I'm an expert in healthy aging. But what you might not know is that I'm also a midlife coach, and I help women like you clarify and design the life you want to live in your second half. A life that's vibrant and feels uniquely like you. Maybe you've spent your entire life caring for others in one way or another, and you're a bit stuck with how to move forward in this new phase of your life. Or maybe you're considering a career change or other big life transition. Or maybe you're in the middle of a life change you didn't see coming. You may be asking yourself questions like, who am I now? And how do I build a new kind of life for myself? Or how do I make the most of the time I have left? This stage in our lives is the perfect time to pause, recalibrate, and reassess where our life is heading and ask ourselves what deserves our precious time. Now is the time to focus on what brings you joy and a sense of deep, calm contentment. I love helping women discover who they are in addition to being caregivers. After our sessions, you will have a clear plan for making your life more vibrant and deeply satisfying. You will feel a sense of control because you will be making choices that are perfect for you. And you will feel more confident because you will have an individualized blueprint to follow. And because you're a Zestful Aging podcast listener, I'm offering a special package deal. Contact me at zestfulaging.com right through my contact link. Time is truly precious, and there's no time to waste.
And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest. See you then.